Contrast uncut, yeah, you know that's us. Where we only speak the real and the real rock with us. Where we motivate the people and politic on success. Oh no, we ain't DJ Khaled, but they swearing we the best.
What's happening? It's Contrast Uncut. It's season 5. It's episode 30. I want to give a huge shout out to Uncle Snoop's Army and Bobby D Presents. I appreciate you, brothers. It's your host, Xylo, and today we have an incredibly dope and legendary special guest. As I just learned off air, this brother is from, a place where it's not too many people around. It's from Plymouth, Massachusetts. And, he's definitely made a way and paved his name in the DMV area, Chocolate City, Washington, D.C., where he is a board certified chiropractor by practice and the founding partner of Gregory Entertainment. He is the executor of the estate of Dick Gregory, the director of Dick Gregory's Foundation, as well as a vice chairman and board member of Wellness and Nature. He is a world-renowned and celebrated author, executive film producer, and consultant. He is a son of the legendary and pioneer comedian activist Dick Gregory. This brother has kept the energy and history of his father alive and accessible. And something about history is that they keep it swept under the rug for so long until someone says, hey, I got to lift up this rug and tell these stories. And this brother has made a real great job in making sure we understand the history and the parallel of society without his father's help that we would have today. And if you don't know who I got on the show by now, it's all good. We get all episode to chop it up with the brilliant mind, Dr. Christian Gregory, everybody. How you doing, King?
Xylo, peace and blessings to you, King. What an introduction. I can roll out right now. I mean, that was a mouthful, man. I was tired just listening to it.
Oh, I know that's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. So I'm supposed to keep you interested.
No, not at all. It just means I got too much going on. And so, duty calls. It's a lot going on in the world right now, and it's an exceptionally challenging time for people of color. It's time to protect our culture, protect our stories. And for the last 3 years since my dad made his transition in 2017, I've been honored and fortunate to do just that. So I appreciate you highlighting it. I appreciate you inviting me onto your platform. And, we take what we're given, we move forward, each one teach one. And this is another opportunity for me to do just that. So thank you, my brother.
I got goosebumps, literally, just hearing that, because the power of one, your history, I mean, where you come from, and how you never allowed that to determine what you're going to do. Instead, you embraced it and allowed it to be the gold brick road to society to see that black and gold looks amazing together.
So many folks, it's possible for two things to be true. And let me explain that. We can both be in the same room. You can be hot, I can be cold. We're not lying, it's relative. So it's subjective. So, America, to so many folks all over the world, they come here because it's explained to them this is the land of milk and honey. What most folks don't understand, that Black folks are that milk and honey. We are the milk and honey of America. It's our back that's so much. And now our culture, it's profoundly important that we protect it, not to the point of it's mine, you can't have it, but it's ours. We're protective over it. We'll decide, we'll control. And now with the technology that's available to all of us, we all now are our own mobile CNN crew. We can tell these stories that historically wouldn't be told. We don't have the same gatekeepers. Now, certainly, Xylo, and I know you know this, we don't control the algorithms, we don't control the platforms. So we have to be smart, we have to link together, we have to network, we have to bridge, we have to build. But what beautiful tools to utilize the technology that's there to really, I grew up at a time it was each one teach one, but now it's each one teach 1,000, because we have the ability with this digital technology to really reach out and touch the world. I've flown all over the world and traveled with my dad all throughout sub-Saharan Africa. And it was always, that was long before there were direct flights. So some of these flights were, 20 plus hours with connections and layovers. And now you can pick up your phone and you can zoom in and be wherever in the world that you want to be. It's up to us to do a better job, to not have it handed to us, but to go and get it, to be hungry, to be adventurous, to realize that not only can we do more, but that we should do more. And especially now, I mean, my dad would always say, fear in God, but cannot occupy the same space. And when my dad was talking about God, he wasn't getting into isms and osms. So it's not for people to sidetrack with their personal religious beliefs. This is just an all-inclusive universal God statement in saying that when you fear something for long, big dog coming, fear, get out of the way. But when you maintain and sustain that fear, there's nothing positive that can manifest from that. And so right now we've been we're a year plus in dealing with this pandemic. And every day we're being beat over the head with horrifying images and just a death count clicker, how many died today. And that's no way, as living, thriving human beings, that's no way to live our life by counting how many died today. Acknowledge it, but let's also acknowledge how many people, contracted this virus and thrived. I want to do the things, the folks who have got this virus and were not hospitalized and not get sick. And that doesn't mean I'm, anti-vaccine. I'm pro-facts. I want the information there is no blanket statement that can be made about a novel virus. It's a novel virus because we, not meaning me and you, meaning science, does not know anything about it because it's brand new. And the danger in that, when someone takes something that's brand new and talks about it as if it's facts, things get wrong. And so many things got wrong in this first year that people started tuning it out. And then it became almost a philosophical movement against it. And it's impacting Black and brown communities at an alarming rate, not because this virus is tailor-made to go after Black or brown, but the comorbidities, obesity, diabetes, things that impact our community at higher percentages are the things that really allow this virus to set up shop and become fatal. So I'll let the vaccine, I'm not an expert in that. I know what my decisions are, and those are personal decisions. But what I would say as a chiropractor for 25 years that focus on wellness and prevention, we have a duty to each other to share what are the scientific, solid, lifestyle, what we call natural hygienic practices we can adopt that are consistent with the people who have contracted this virus and have not only survived, but thrived, and it's had little to no impact on their life. And that doesn't take away from the hurt and pain and misery of folks who have legitimately lost loved ones. Part of why this is so polarizing is because people say, oh, well, I was against the vaccine till my mom died. Well, no disrespect, but what makes that one person so special? Now that it's someone that happens to you, people are dying. And so that's why I'm not part of the anti-mask piece. I'm like, I'm a healthcare provider. You protect the weakest amongst us. Wear your mask, not for you, but for someone out here who may be immunocompromised. So wash your hands, do your part, continue to distance. It is not then when you think of historically what our brothers and sisters went through, what we've been asked to do for this last year or so is not the end of the world. I mean, most of us needed a little downtime. Our brains were over engaged. Slow down and methodically plan for how you plan to emerge from this pandemic a better person. Don't let the pandemic suffocate you. Do what you've been doing, protect yourself, protect your families, but the world's going to look a little different when we come out from here. And how do we get out in front of that? And I'm not just talking about business-wise, but I'm also talking about healthier as a community. When this pandemic first set in, all I could hear was my dad's voice in my head, because people would say, well, what would Dick Gregory say? He said it. All that. I mean, I don't know anyone. I know a lot of folks. I advise a lot of legends who have said more than Dick Gregory, because for 60 plus years, he was omnipresent and he would give the same energy from doing an interview like we're doing right now, doing an interview with CNN. It didn't matter for him. Any opportunity to connect to humanity, connect to his people was an opportunity he took serious. So if you go back and listen, I see Brother Bob on the wall behind you. My dad had a wonderful relationship with Bob Marley. I was there many times when they were together in Boston. I was there with my dad. I met Bob, and I experienced their energy collectively. And so we have an opportunity to take what was given. There's so much abundance in America right now, compared to, it doesn't mean the playing field is far from level, but it wasn't what it was 100 years ago. That's for certain. We are light years away from where we were. We went from not enough information to information overload. So you got to do the work. You got to, someone's not going to come on a platform like this and say, do this, 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 and this if you want to survive this thing, because it's different for each of us. But to tell you to slow down, don't be afraid, eat more fruits and vegetables, drink more water, listen to Dick Gregory, Baba Dick Gregory, and Dr. Sebi. Alkalize your bloodstream. There's not a virus out here that can set up shop as easily in an alkalized pH as it can with an acidic pH. And that includes, our mouth, our nose, our nasal membranes, our mucosa. Well, they have a pH as well. So there's a lot of people who have come in contact with this virus and they don't have antibodies because it never got past their first level of defense. So this is immunity and how the immune system works. It's complicated, and the human body doesn't come with an owner's manual. We're not expecting everyone to know this, but we are expecting you to take a step back, stop being spoon-fed fear, and make smart decisions. I mean, if you're someone that breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you're running out to Mickey D's, you've already eaten the vaccine. They've been pumping it, and they've been pumping every vaccine known to man into all those mystery meats. And so, you have to, my dad had a line he would always use. He would say he was in New York City in Central Park, and he walked up to a brother with cocaine dust on his nose, heroin needle in his arm, and he offered the brother an apple, and the brother said, "But is it organic?" We got to get real. We got to, we have to start, because there's some folks, if you're, morbidly obese, diabetic, you need to get way off the grid, or you need to consider some of the other options. If you want to keep going out to the bars, going out and partying, being out interacting, the virus is real. That aspect, how it came about, I don't know. But just like when AIDS was there, people were dying. And, it's above my pay grade to talk about where this virus came from, but I know this. It's not the first, it won't be the last. And so some of the uniform decisions you should make is an ounce, and these things sound silly, but they're so true. An ounce of prevention is equal to a pound of cure. Do what we can as a people to make ourselves healthier, not for this wave, but for whatever the next wave's going to be, because viruses and bacteria and microbes, they have the same will to live as you or I do. They're living things. They're designed to circumvent our defenses. And so when we shut down our defenses and tell someone else outside in, give me your defenses, well, what if their defenses can't keep up with what's next? These are some, but now if you've already given into that, and again, not to keep singling out McDonald's, but it's a lifestyle. If you're a fast food, don't take care of yourself, don't take care of your mind, body, and soul, then it's a different decision. When my dad got cancer, he made decisions not to do chemotherapy and radiation, but it was one of the toughest conversations I've ever had with my dad, because I normally just gave him such a broad berth to say whatever he wanted to say. And, and I didn't agree with everything my dad said, but I didn't challenge him because I didn't live that life. So I had respect for what he said to say, oh, I wouldn't know if that was true because that was not my world, but I have enough respect for a foot soldier that was there, boots on the ground, to take their word for it. So when we have an opportunity to make decisions that work for our lifestyle, it worked for Dick Gregory with his non-Hodgkin's lymphoma to not do chemotherapy and radiation. That doesn't mean that that should be everyone's position, because had it been a different type of cancer, more aggressive cancer, maybe he would have made a different decision. We get too far into the spectrum of I'm a hard no, I'm a hard yes. No, I'm thinking. My decision changes every day. What I'm doing, I'm watching what this virus does, and then I adjust my behavior accordingly. And so you can't make a blanket statement. And too many of us are dug in. Part of it, I mean, we can blame so many folks, but at the end of the day, it comes down to us as individuals taking better care of ourselves, our families, and our communities. Folks are hurting. Economically, folks are hurting. Emotionally, folks are hurting. Young folks are definitively hurting. We have to really, surround our community with love and really look out for each other and do a better job than what we've been doing. But I also want to applaud the folks who are out here doing the good work. So we definitely got our work cut out for us. And I'm right here on the front line with you, brother.
Knowledge is power, but when you get the opportunity to use that knowledge, it becomes your superpower. And there's no greater time to have a superpower than dealing with a virus that there's so much telephone going on, where one phone call to the next, some bit of information gets dropped, and then we're all in hoopla trying to figure it out. And, that's okay as long as you trust yourself and prepare yourself. And there's so much levels to that. And you broke down so much of the narrative and you made it transparent for all of us to absorb and understand. It was so much information that was just boom, boom. I was going to say this, and it was like, no, you already fed it to us. And that part of it is that you understood that, hey, this knowledge of accessibility is not that accessible to everybody. And how do you change that narrative? Each one becomes one thing till it's streamed 1,000 times. And then one thing that's as spread out, is mobile and accessible, is now we have the power to keep on going. And, as we see from the narrative of what the schools are trying to do, they're trying to erase certain history. And that's something I completely disagree, stand against. And, I'm willing to throw that down the damn road, defund that misinformation, defund the misintelligence of not providing people the information of how this foundation was built. And that's something where we continue to have a battle with. And, I got to tell you, I just went on that whole rant with you because I felt my spirit had to let that out of me. But I got to tell you right now, time's the most finite thing on this earth. I got to tell you how much I appreciate your time, rocking with me, rocking with the viewers, and also just giving us a world of words that make more sense than just verbal communication, something that we're going to be able to absorb, stick with us, and let it go through our bloodstream, the same way how we want alkaline water to kick in there, and the same way how we love sea moss. And those things right there keep us battling that the unidentified virus that's out there. You touch it, you can get it, but if you prepare yourself, it's just like any other situation. You go to a bad neighborhood, you're in a bad situation, you open your mouth, you give respect, you make it home.
It's that simple. And not everything is. I mean, my dad would always say, and this is important, some of the things my dad would say you have to slow down and really listen to, because at the first interpretation, it doesn't quite make sense. All the wisdom you will ever need, you were born with. And in a nutshell, that's, well, what are you talking about? But that's intellect. Don't confuse wisdom with intellect. So what intellect will do, we're standing at the shore of a beach and we see some type of a phenomenon happening with the water that we don't understand. So we're Googling it. We're looking at our phone. We're saying, well, the phones didn't tell us to run, so we're not going to run. Meanwhile, the animals with wisdom left 2 days ago. So what frequency are they connected to that we've been disconnected from? So all of the wisdom you will ever need, you were born with. A bird didn't read a book to learn how to fly. So what you need to do is start believing in yourself. We've convinced ourselves that, our second brain is in our gut, our GI tract, our small and large intestine. And there's just as much serotonin receptor sites in our GI tract as there are in our brain. This is learned information. This is armchair research. This is fight or flight. This is, I don't care what the reason is. This is telling me to go. This is telling me not to trust this. This is telling me not to like this. Start to learn to listen to your innate intelligence again. Too many of us have got too far away from it. And then too many folks, they read something and, they become an expert. This stuff's complicated. I'm not, this stuff's profoundly complicated. And so the physiology of the human body, all of the medicine research and greatest minds in the world do not fully understand. We understand anatomy, We can break anatomy down all day long. We've mastered anatomy. We have not mastered the physiology, how the human body functions. And we may not. We know that depending on which expert you talk to, we use roughly 20% of our brain. What's the other 80% doing? So don't tell me I can't do something. We've all seen stories where, well, this mom or this dad picked up a car to save their child. But, well, what's that inner strength? How do we tap into that? Not just when we need to be superhuman, but to vibe and learn and focus to that other 80% of what the brain's capabilities are. And the important thing is to enjoy the process, the journey. It's not all of the milestones, not all the peaks. It's when you're down and going through the valley, that is the joy right there. It's the cycle of life. Folks will say, well, it's a sprint, it's a marathon, it's multiple sprints and marathons. Depends where you are at that point in your life. Folks will say things, well, we oversimplify things. Is the glass half full? Is it half empty? What it is refillable. Pick it up and fill it up, and let's move on to the next conversation. We get bogged down with too many talking points instead of living and allowing others to live. So it's going to become confrontational. Be comfortable being off the grid, because quite honestly, as a lifelong human rights and civil rights activist, this isn't my fight. This is going to burn up a lot of people's capacity and resources out there fighting over a damn mask. Understand it and don't get distracted by it. Right now, as we speak, the largest shift of wealth is taking place due to 5G, and 5G is not the boogeyman that most people thought it was. When microwaves first came out, people were afraid of them. We didn't have one in our home because we didn't have cooked foods. We were raw vegans. But I would go to friends' house and their grandma would fire up the microwave and make everyone go to another room. Now you'll put your forehead on it while you're texting. So these things, as we have better understandings of them, windshield wipers were first, when Ford first came out with windshield wipers, they were demonized. Congress was literally passing acts to have windshield wipers removed from automobiles because nothing was that mechanical back then, and it was putting people in a trance and they were crashing their cars. Now we go to Times Square and there's a billion times that sensory overload, and we do just fine. That's evolution. That's the mind and body being able to handle things we couldn't used to handle. So 5G is a quantum leap in how, and it hasn't even properly been rolled out yet, but how the Internet of Things, how all these things will connect with each other. And it allows virtual reality and reality to sync up. So you'll see young kids out here on skateboards talking to someone who's not there because their virtual buddy who's in another country is right next to them on their skateboard. It's for us older analog minds, we're going to really struggle with what this next quantum leap in technology is. And a lot of it's going to be on the backboard and the spine of blockchain. We hear blockchain, we just think currency. We always take the low-hanging fruit. Blockchain is a platform. Now you hear folks talking about NFTs and all these, and NFTs are just letters to most of these folks. They don't even fully understand what it is, but now your intellectual property can be attached to a digital deed, a non-fungible token. You write a song, it can no longer be pirated. If you attach it to this token, it proves it's authentic, and it proves, just like a home, show me the deed, it shows me you are the owner. And so now most of us have a greater valuation, financial, economic valuation on our intellectual property because we put so many things instead of in our brain, in our phones. 100 years after you're gone, your phone may be picked up and may be turned into the greatest Broadway play that ever existed. You were just, kicking it and putting what's in your mind in your phone. We have to start to value what our brain, we're all content creators. That's what we do all day long. Whether you have a huge following or a small following, this content reigns supreme. All of the cable platforms that used to charge to distribute, they're not distributors anymore. They're all buying the content now because content reigns supreme. Soon this stuff's just like Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. Content's just gonna flow through the air. We're not going to pay to get it. It's just going to be there like street lamps at night. But what we're going to pay is for the content. And how do we assign that content to an individual is with non-fungible tokens. And so crypto collectibles, the crypto market is going to be so much more than a currency. And most people don't understand that. And so now we have, for some reason, there's a team of folks I'm on the board of 2 crypto collectible companies. So I know crypto collectibles well. We've been dealing with this for 8+ years now. And now for some reason, someone said, hey, I'm gonna really go after the Black urban hip hop culture and introduce NFTs to them. And when have they ever given something of value to us first? So that's when you first say, wait a minute. Well, and I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying go ahead as a creator, go ahead and let folks put value on, but don't go out and spend millions of dollars on it, because it's going to go through a recalibration. And in a sense, and I know folks hate to hear folks talk like this, but I'm all about looking out for my people. It's in a sense right now, since a handful of individuals control the valuations, it's kind of the textbook definition of a Ponzi scheme. It's a textbook, it's a pyramid scheme in a sense, until it becomes more widely available and more people have input. And I don't want to say regulated, but self-regulated, and internationally, we will, within the next 3 to 4 years, all of our wealth and value will most likely be transmitted from one another in some type of blockchain protected format. It's the net. Paper money is so obsolete, it's filthy, it's dirty. We're talking about wash your hands every time you should wash your hands every time you touch your money. Money's filthy. And the fact that people aren't dying every day from touching it speaks to how strong our immune systems are. We need to give our immune systems a pat on the back. Watching the TV, it just makes it seem like none of our immune systems ain't shit. Like, you can't handle this, come get this, you need our help. So I've been working for a lifetime, eating good, alkaline. Don't treat me like an entry level, what we sometimes call disrespectfully, like a useful consumer, someone that just all day long is flooding their body with harmful toxins. Well, that's a conversation for them. The conversation should not be a broad spectrum conversation for everybody. And that makes it difficult, because then people have to decide, well, where do I fit in? What am I doing wrong? And that's a conversation as a community we need to ask ourselves, because there's far too many of diabetes. I mean, why are we at the top of that chain? What are we doing so wrong? And a lot of times people wrong.
Now that's activity. We became so complacent with our phones, with games, with, accessibility of everything being in our hands. The complacency of, hey, I don't have to go out and do anything to entertain my mind. I could just sit down, lay up, and do nothing, and I'll be fine. I can even work on the phone from my job and stay in my bed and have to do nothing. And then that's also goes further into the next foundation and generation. You have your kids doing the same thing you're doing, and then it just continues to grow. And now we have a horrible cycle of obesity that we've been trying to beat. And then it allows this whole, the next step is, once you go glycemic, you go to be a diabetic. And, you have to have controls of your blood sugar levels. And then, it's also the bad air quality. There's so many people developing asthma out of nowhere. There's just so many different variables. And I just want to add one more thing while I got my piece in real quick, is that you brought up something so powerful, is that, you brought up a bird. A bird leaves certain environments 2-3 days prior to whatever is going to come. And the brain on a bird is smaller than our hands. And we're literally, we're not thinking about it in the same essence, because we're absorbed by everything that's going on. And you don't have that ability. When you think about technology, they're preparing the future in technology 10 years in advance. What they're working on today in some type of venture capitalist is for 10 years from now. And that's a lot of the stuff you're explaining right now, is that what's going to be next level in the next 5 years that will roll out in 10 years. And they'll already have something pre-planned for that. And how do we prepare for that today? We need to stop saying, hey, we'll wait for tomorrow, Well, tomorrow's never been promised. We have to start focusing on what we could do today that will prepare us for tomorrow. So when it arrives, we know it's coming. We're doing something about it.
Tomorrow's already here. There's folks that already mapped out what tomorrow look. All these billionaires going to outer space. They're forecasting what tomorrow is. And most of us, we don't fully understand that. If the Earth is a spaceship. It's a spaceship that we're on that's taken us through the universe. And so if at some point this spaceship goes down, and 98% of all living things that have ever been on Earth are already extinct. That's what happens. It's a cycle. It goes through. So 98% of all living things that have been on this planet since its conception are already extinct. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Our big brains make us think, oh, there's no way that we're too important. The dinosaurs probably thought that. And if the dinosaurs had the ability to leave and come back, they would still be here. So I understand the science. I think there's far too much financial resources misplaced on it, that we should be taking care of the folks that are here. But that is something that is profoundly important, that people of color are part of that conversation. Otherwise we're going to get left, and we're going to look around. And it's going to be like one of those sci-fi films. Where did everyone go? Because we didn't keep our eye on the ball.
No, it's also just like mental health. Mental health is something that is negligent on the mental health board side, the psychologists and how they're training it. And then it's naive from all the practitioners that are saying, hey, I got different cultures coming in my building that I'm not prepared for. I don't know how to handle this. And just over recent couple of years that there's more of attention on there. And it's like that we wouldn't be in such a spiral of where we're at and wanting to be more into things and develop my own intelligence and what's going on. Instead, we think that we're obsolete.
And the reason, and this is a big one, sickness is an industry. Mental illness is an industry. The more diagnostic codes I can come up with, suddenly there were medications for children that fidgeted. Well, I fidgeted, most people fidget. And now that we have a drug for it, we have an ICD-10 diagnostic code to say, okay, this is what you have, this is your syndrome, take this medication for it. And the reality is that we do not have a healthcare system. We have a sick care system. Quite honestly, healthcare systems are not profitable. And so since everything in America and most of the westernized world is for profit, we've realized that if I could treat cancer, is a lot more financially rewarding than curing cancer. There's no money in curing things. It's a one-time payment, as opposed to you for the rest of your life. It's the amount of diabetes in folks who are morbidly obese. That's not an accident. That's by design. That fuels the sick care industry. When the pandemic first started, they were telling folks, run out, get gloves and get masks. And you say, okay, for the first time in my life, I said, oh, I'm going to go to a medical supply store. They're all in our community, and they're all for diabetics. That's a whole industry. Wound care, crutches, canes, wheelchairs, scooters. This is a whole industry that is based on you eating garbage. It's completely manageable. We're not talking about type 1 juvenile. We're talking about type 2 adult diabetes is 100% lifestyle determined, 100%. We do not stop being mammals. 605 muscles, 202 bones. We do not stop being mammals just because our brains get big. And to your point a moment ago, we have to get out there. We have to get away from our devices. We have to move. And there are plenty of societies all over the world that have kids that spend just as much time on devices that don't have a diabetes endemic happening in their country. And part of that is because of the quality of the food we eat. So if you are coming if you're with 100 folks and you're coming across the desert and you're dying of dehydration, if I have a big truck of Flint water, you're going to drink it and you're going to be thankful that you drank it. I would drink it. But what's going to happen 5 years, 10 years from now? And so that's some of the questions we have to ask now. Right now, there's 3 pharmaceutical companies that are providing shots for COVID: Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson. You buy a brand new car today, and I'm the dealer, and I say, hey, look, that car, it takes premium fuel. Hey, it takes diesel fuel. Well, these 3 vaccines are very different. So why is someone not saying, talk to your healthcare provider, look at your medical record to see which of these three you're a better candidate for? Because it's panic time. It's a wildfire. I don't care what you put in your car, put it in there and get the hell out of here, because we're creating that. We're focusing on the fear rather than being practical. So we have to ask informed questions, and we have to do it respectfully. As a healthcare provider, I have a ton of respect of what folks go through to reach that level. Neurologists, virologists, infectious disease. I mean, some of these are some of the most difficult fields in medicine. And so I don't just poo-poo what they're saying, I listen to it. But, expert is a relative term, because you really can't be an expert on something new. And no one's more of an expert on your body than you. So this is how it's impacting most. But let me recalibrate that with my own knowledge of my body and know how I do every flu season, every time I get a cold, understand our own immune system and what helps it to thrive, and start to really boost on a regular basis, not just when we get sick, not just when there's a pandemic, but be proactive about our health as a community. Dr. King said this, there's no bigger human right than access to quality healthcare. And the biggest access to quality healthcare is us. We're the first step. The best thing to treat diabetes or obesity is to never get there. And so we have to play an active role in that. Most of the doctors you go to are diabetics. Most of them are obese. They're not trained in nutrition. They're sitting there talking to you about how you're doing drinking a Diet Coke. So this thing is deep. It's not just like them against us. It's the industry against everyone. And many people in the industry are victims of there's folks in the Sackler family that became addicted to opioids. So, I mean, it's not like once you turn this beast loose, it's not like it only stays laser focused on, it's going after everyone. So as a community, we need to do better. Culturally, we need to understand our genetics. Black folks, by definition, typically the closer you are genetically from the equator, the higher your blood pressure is. And we didn't realize that till we decoded the human genome. And so Black people should have higher blood pressure, because that's how that's our normal. But when Western medicine decided they wanted to come up with what average is, what's acceptable, they took 100 middle-aged, wealthy white men, took all 100 of their blood pressure and extrapolated from that okay, the average from this 100 men is 120/80, and then that became the gold standard for all of us, even though that norm is not my normal. And so I go to see a doctor and they tell me, hey, you're 10 millimeters of mercury high. We're going to start you on medication. I should have never been on medication because I didn't have hypertension to begin with. And so part of this is reclaiming the understanding of the human body and taking an active role in taking better care of ourselves, mind, body, and soul. And it's easier said than done, but there's folks out here doing it. So it's just that simple, Xylo. We have to do it.
I love how you really brought back in the whole thing of like, because we have, where we were talking about earlier, mental health and mental illness, and it's, naive and negligence on both ends when it comes to it. But you rewound it all the way back to the beginning, and it's naive and negligence on their end, especially when it comes to blood pressure. If they would have did their research and say, hey, it's just not just one type of human being out there, that's only one culture, there's only one race, one nationality, one ethnicity. No, there's a lot more, and everyone's different. And they didn't take that into standards, and
they cannot they cannot be that smart and that stupid at the same time. There's more money, the more people. There's more money in the more people we get on drugs. And so, you're 24, they start you on blood pressure drugs, and then 5 years later, you got to take 2 drugs to offset the side effects of that. So by the time you're 60, you got 50 medications you're taking every day, and then wondering why, your immune system is not up to speed. And that's not to, belittle the folks who are out here that are struggling. It's never too late. Like, it's never too late to start alkaline. And it really is. People say, oh, well, that's oversimplifying it, to alkalize your bloodstream. Drink clean water, eat fruit. Is that oversimplifying it? I mean, it is. And you mentioned earlier, Xylo, when I was given that example, birds, but all of the animals left except for domestic animals. So the cats, the dogs, the cows, all the things we've trained to be, robots, they stuck around till the wave hit them. They had no earthly idea, but all the other quote unquote dumb animals were busting out of cages, some of them a week before. When we look at the horrible tsunami that hit, was it in Indonesia? Some of those animals, when they go back and did like the deep kind of analysis years later, people are saying, "Oh my, the animals that were bought left weeks beforehand, days beforehand." So we need to sit still. When I was in chiropractic school, my dad was down there in Atlanta with me for a major part of it because he just loved anatomy and physiology. We would put stethoscopes on and just listen to our body and just, be amazed by the sound. We take our bodies for granted. We put helmets on and ram them into each other. We would never do that with our luxury car. We have to reevaluate our priorities. Shit's replaceable. We are not. We have to reevaluate the things we do to ourselves. And, I go out, I have a good time, I party, drink alcohol, all of these things and understanding, but I also detox, go on week-long water fast, and there's an ebb and flow to it. So now some people say, "Oh, well, I don't want." Okay, you have to figure out. It's what we call biochemical individuality. You have to figure out the key that works for you. If I said something you're really passionate about, if I say, "Hey, if you stop doing that, you can get an extra 2 years of life," I say, "Wait a minute, I like this too much. I'll go ahead and pass on the extra 2 years and keep doing this for the next 50. You have to make, and you can make an informed. My dad would always say, to tell someone something once is a service. To tell them more than once is a disservice. If you're smoking and I say, "Hey, brother, that's bad for your health, you should probably consider," done. As your loving brother and friend, I've done my service. By the time I tell you the second time, now I don't respect your intellect because I'm assuming you didn't hear me. And so to tell someone something once is a service, to tell them more than once is a disservice. Now, you could choose to keep smoking. Then I say, "Well, I'm not going to be around this brother. I'm going to talk to this brother via Zoom or on a phone call because I enjoy when we connect, but I also respect my body and my temple enough that I don't want to put myself in that environment." So we have to dig a little deeper, but don't think there's no joy in digging deeper, because joy is profoundly important. I mean, as human beings, joy. So however, you don't think that doing the deep work is devoid of joy, because it's not. And especially once you retrain your brain and your mind and condition yourself, man, there's nothing more joy. And this is going to sound crazy, but when you don't have a clean water, there's nothing more joyful than clean water. When you don't have fresh air, talk to many of the people in China that have had major environmental air quality issues. We take fresh air for granted till it's gone. And we're confused because they've conditioned us. Fresh air is opening a window, but they've conditioned us. Fresh air is spraying a can full of chemicals or opening up an air freshener and hanging it in our car. That new car smell, that's cancer. If you want to know what cancer smells like, chemicals off-gassing, that's cancer. So when we say, "Ooh, I want that new car smell," well, that's all these, there's 1,000 different products in an automobile. You're smelling them. It's like a new carpet. Well, there's nothing good about that smell. That's glues and adhesives and, things that are toxic to the human body. We say, love that new house smell. Close the windows. Well, now you're huffing. And when you start huffing on fumes, bad things happen. So retrain. Fresh air is opening a window. It does not come in a can. It's not a Glade plug-in. I walk through, some of the buildings where I stay because I move around frequently because of work, not for any other reason. And I can always tell if I was blindfolded, I know whose home I'm passing because I can smell the perfumes. I can smell what fragrances they have plugged in. I got one, sister, one of my sisters. I got 7 sisters. One of them's got a friend. She doesn't know it, but he's borrowed from the house because his brother wears so much quote unquote smell good, as we grew up calling Muslim oils, from brother man selling oils, that 2 weeks later, I walked past the drywall where this brother was standing and I can still smell it. Nothing should smell that long. Nothing natural lingers that long. So, think cocaine's natural, heroin's natural. Just because something's natural doesn't mean in high concentrations it's good for you. So we got to unplug. We got to unplug, and we got to think, and we have to think about not just what we put into our bodies via eating or drinking, what we topically put on our skin, what we allow through our eyes, our ears, into our mind. All of it collectively is consumption, and we have to be smarter about what we consume and do a better job resisting consumption of certain things. It's not easy, but we can do it. There's too many examples out here with folks who do it every day.
Come on, facts, facts. As testimonies of transparency. Now, Doctor, I have a quote, and normally I started off with a quote, but our conversations were so organic, and the amount of information you were spilling, you were manufacturing diamonds with that tongue of yours and letting the gems just fly. And I had a quote, it was from your father, and I feel like your father was in this conversation. Maybe that's why I felt the goosebumps. But the quote I have, I'm gonna read it to you. You basically, this entire conversation was this quote. And I haven't told you anything about it, and I'm gonna tell you my quote. My belief is, certain things have to be explained that never been explained. Dick Gregory. And you have this entire interview explained so much that has never been explained, and people just have their own ideology, they have their own understanding, and you're not supposed to lean upon your own understanding. You're supposed to do some research, do some facts, be a Rolodex to your own surroundings and your own atmosphere. And you allow that to be so transparent that you are manufacturing gems and going and not even knowing you are spewing out all the information that we need to absorb. And I just want to say thank you. And I don't even want to ask you the question about the quote, because you already gave me all the answers without even knowing the quote.
I lived the quote. The quote was, I was raised on that quote. Yeah, that quote is in Gregory DNA. And so, I've done probably 40 interviews in the last 2 months specifically about my dad's new documentary, the one and only Dick Gregory.
I love it, by the way.
On Showtime. Well, really, it's everywhere now. Now you can get it on all the streamers, and in 2 weeks or so, you'll be able to get it, purchase it and download it at places where electronic files are sold, so iTunes and all that good stuff. It's just like a conversation with Dick Gregory. Each time you watch it, you'll glean something else from it, and it was intentionally that way. We really wanted to pattern the 115 minutes after how my dad's brain worked, and it was such a beautiful mind because he was a master teacher, master communicator, and if you weren't on his level, it'll come back to you. It's what I call boomerang effects. You would listen to something Dick Gregory said and thought you understood it, then 2 days later it comes back, hits you again, then a month later when you finally figured it out, you have kind of your aha moment. So all of those pearls, all of those seeds are still here. 10 of us Gregory children. Many times you'll hear me refer to my father as Dick Gregory, talk about him in the third person. And the reason is my dad and I, we 4 businesses we formed together: Gregory Entertainment, Dick Gregory Media. So, I couldn't be sitting in a boardroom and calling my dad daddy or dad or papa when we're all equals in there as, executors in this business. So the wonderful thing about the life cycle, as Miss Cicely Tyson would always so eloquently explain to me, once an adult, twice a child. Take care of yourself during your adulthood, because there will be a second childhood. We all go through it if we live long enough. And the loving relationship, if you have it, because as mammals, there's no rules that say, we have to do what our parents did for us when that cycle took. So I enjoyed being my dad's son. I enjoyed the time when we became almost peers and equals. And then I enjoyed the time when he would lean on me almost in a father-like. And I never pointed that out to him because it was beautiful just to do it and then immediately get back to where we were. And so I frequently say, no country for old legends. Legends get old. They age just like the rest of us. We need to give them a little more space. So many people knew Dick Gregory just in his gray beard, angry internet time. And there's a fine line between anger and passion. And, my father was passionate. He was passionate about his people. And whenever you saw him do interviews and really lay into folks, which he could do beautifully, and most folks didn't take it personal, he always ended with love. It was always love to the family. Love you, brother. Thank you for having me. Because he realized I'm talking to you, but really this is going out to the people. You may understand it, but others may not. And so in the film, when you heard Kevin Hart talking about Dick Gregory cussing them out, well, I was there. And it was everything Kevin described, and then a little more than that, actually. But what was beautiful to me was how well Kevin received it. He acknowledged, like, I needed to hear that. Like, I needed to be talked to like that from someone I respect as an elder, and someone who, has been through it, and is, so many folks in my dad's orbit didn't make it out. Dr. King, Medgar Evers, Malcolm X, Fred Hampton, there was JFK, RFK. These were people that, my dad didn't agree with, but they at least would pick up the phone and engage and try to find a way forward. John Lennon later in life. So many of my dad's friends and colleagues and peers were not afforded the luxury of living a full life cycle. What we have in Dick Gregory's 84 years is reflective of what a Dr. King, a Medgar, a Malcolm had. That all the jewels they still could have kept. My dad was giving gifts and wisdom right up to 2 hours before he passed. And so what you have taken from our community is so much more than just, oh, we cut down an activist, we assassinated an activist. No, well, we took out Martin's dream, we took out Malcolm's fight. No, you didn't. What you did was you shifted that responsibility onto future generations to do a better job taking care of ourselves, our families, our community. And now, you needed, people will frequently say to me, are there any leaders? Are there any leaders? We're all leaders. Back in the day, you needed leaders because there was no information. So the only way you would listen to a racist white newscast or racist newspaper, or you would gather at the church and hear whoever they brought in. This was the social media before social media. And so that's what these folks, well, now we all have it. Now we can make informed, hey, that's deep. If someone didn't understand something I said or we were discussing, they can Google it, they can look it up. They didn't have that opportunity in the 60s. That wasn't an option. So now we are all leaders. And so we need to stop looking and start doing, because we have so many resources now, and to slow down during this global kind of downturn, really look on getting healthier, mind, body, and soul, getting fitter, understanding what your path forward post-pandemic is going to be, so we collectively as a community can be better positioned for the next right hook life throws at us. We can be better positioned to handle it, avoid it, and thrive. So I appreciate the time, brother. Thank you for providing a platform.
I got to add something in real quick. See, I grew up without a father, and basically the streets raised me. I come from a wealthy family, but once he passed away and he married a Mexican woman back east, they cut him off. And so I grew up struggling, and, especially after he passed away. And I just want to say that I appreciate you and your siblings for sharing your father with the world, because your father has definitely paved the way. And at the same time, you're still on the same path of paving the way, so many more people can get on that highway and make it a freeway.
I love it. I love it. I appreciate you saying that, but let me also, because I'm hearing my dad in my ear, he would say, I didn't give you niggas a choice. Like, he made it very clear early on, the movement came first. And it was it literally was a way of life for us. So it wasn't like we were ever saying, oh, daddy, come back. We knew, and it wasn't like, it was absentee dad. It was like, if we're developing a new space program and we pick, 3 folks to go and live on the moon for 2 years, we're not wondering where your dad is, or your mom is. Where they're at. They're out there on the front line. And so we didn't, and my dad would always say, Hitler had a mother and father at home. Jack the Ripper had a mother and father at home. Half these niggas ain't home when they are home. So it's important to realize that, it's a village, and it really, these things that sound so, but I've learned, with my father being a Baba to the world, there are other folks too who I've learned tremendous, and he encouraged us to learn tremendous amounts from. So we all are fathers to our own movements, And whether it's our own children, whether it's the community, you know, we should leave this world in better shape than which we found it. And so, and that is collectively, that's, and you know, we live locally, we should at least think globally and how this is going to, and from everything from what we wear for clothing to the material of the, you know, I sleep on an organic mattress, not to floss, because I understand we spend a third of our life, some of us, on a mattress. So we talk about air quality, well, what you're breathing is profoundly important. I'm in my car for 10 minutes, 20 minutes a day because I don't drive far to get to where I'm going. So understanding there's a bigger point to all of this, and to share this knowledge that we've all gained, not just to say, hey, I have it, but to get out there and share it and help the community collectively to grow. It's a beauty. I don't always have time to jump on platforms like this. I have 3 companies and 4 companies that I sit on the board for. It's a busy time for me. It's all good stuff. It's all to make the world a better place. But I view opportunities like what you provided me here for, it's a badge of honor, and it's necessary to pay it forward, because, you know, us Gregory's, we receive so much. And so, you know, go and see the film, the one and only Dick Gregory, go experience it. Yeah, I'm not just saying that because I'm an executive producer on it. I'm saying it because it's very well done. 2 months from now, we'll be making an announcement about the feature film. And in 3 weeks, the new Dick Gregory album drops. And so it's, you know, from Black Thought, Lupe Fiasco, Telly Quali, it's a who's who of folks who are just taking this man, Dick Gregory, this man, this movement, this soldier, taking his legacy and putting it to hip hop and tries to bring it to generations that may not have ever seen a Dick Gregory YouTube interview, may not have seen a Dick Gregory lecture or read a Dick Gregory book. We're planting the seeds deep and wide. I'll see to it, you know, we're connected now, so I'll see to it the moment the album comes out that, you know, you get your hands on it. And also shoot me your address, because there's a couple other of my dad's books, some of the swag bags from the movie. Part of it's promotion, part of it's sharing with a good brother. So take good care. Thank you, brother. I appreciate the time. You know, blessings to you and the family.
Hey, on that note, it's Contrast Uncut. It's season 5, episode 30. I got to give a huge shout out to Uncle Snoop's Army, the dog, and Bobby D Presents. I appreciate you, brothers. I wouldn't be able to do incredibly dope stuff like talk to Dr. Christian Gregory. This brother let them diamonds fly. I'm talking about he has so many gems in the air, and through this conversation, he may have cleaned some air on the way he was speaking. And if you can get some of that clean air, go ahead, open your window and just breathe it in, and thank the Gregorys for that energy. I appreciate you so much, King. And you have a blessed day, and continue to fight the fight, because we all need to see somebody win, and we need to be a part of that team.
Absolutely. Blessings to you and the family, King. Take care, brother. Peace.
Peace.